How's it going, folks? I'm Matthew. This is Lemora's Cards, and today, I don't know what we're doing today. Today we're talking about cEDH in the broadest terms we ever have, I guess. This is going to be a different video than anything I've put up, assuming I even put this up. But so much has happened the past week that I don't really know what to do other than talk about it. And both kind of give information to people who aren't terminally online and as exposed and in the know and everything that's going on in online cEDH, right? And then also my opinions and what I'm going to be doing going forward, because things are in a pretty wild spot. So I'm going to talk through what happened for the most part. Not going into every single ridiculous detail, letting you guys have a better idea of what's going on and what you can expect going forward, because there's a lot of uncertainty and I'm pretty uncertain about what I'm doing. So yeah, I don't know. We'll thank all my amazing patrons over on Patreon whose support helps a lot, especially when things are weird and crazy. Your support is very much appreciated. Well, that being said though, let's go ahead and talk about it. So the first big thing that happened, and you probably, I'm assuming you've seen the channel or heard news about like the cEDH thing, which got put together and then quickly information got out about it, you know, quicker than anybody expected. And there were a lot of immediate like knee-jerk reactions. And so we felt like we had to address things. And coming out and doing that probably made things worse. And I kind of pointed that out. The announcement of that in a more official capacity was met with a lot of different opinions, right? Some people thought it was a really good idea. Some, especially like a lot of tournament grinder type people, reached out to me and loved the idea and really interested in experimentation. Some people didn't like the idea. They didn't like the idea of the format really changing, or just people in the format deciding to make changes, and all kinds of other different, like just tons of issues you can have just with that idea itself, not even going into like how it was implemented or how it was presented to people. And it was presented really poorly. Like I said, we presented everything very quickly. We weren't really ready to do all of that. We probably shouldn't have. Oh well, what can I say? So that was a mess on its own, just dealing with, you know, the community conversation and there just being a lot of it, right? We had like 1,000 people join the Discord in the first day. It was already, I think, like one of the biggest cEDH Discords by the end of it, or, you know, like right now is like as many as the Topdeck Discord, which is currently not around. We'll get to that. So you had that going on and a wide range of receptions to that. Then there were discussions about like Topdeck's involvement. Some people didn't like Mikey being a part of it because they felt it was like a conflict of interest. I still kind of think like Topdeck literally already had a monopoly. Mikey involving anyone other than Topdeck employees is them having less of a monopoly. If they wanted to, they could have just said, this is the new ban, let's get over it. That's how we're doing it. They didn't do that. They kind of divvied it up. That part of it, I know some of the messaging was weird, but I still don't think that was an issue when someone already controls almost every single aspect of tournament cEDH, which is part of why things are really up in the air right now. Because as part of that, you know, some people got upset at the group members that were part of it and were questioning like credentials or issues with like representation or diversity. Again, this wasn't a finished group. That was part of the announcement too. We were thrown together very quickly. We had even been a group for a week, I think, at that point, maybe just barely. So there were conversations about that. And then I'm not going to go into all the details over the ensuing stuff, but Zane had voiced some opinions on that people didn't really like. And then people kind of dove into his tweets and who he followed and other stuff and started pointing out lots of problematic things and then started applying that stuff to anyone around him. And within the day, I think by the next day, Zane was no longer a part of the leadership of Topdeck. That was an announcement that had talk about bringing on another dev, stuff like that, which is already a huge shakeup. Zane was part of Topdeck or Eminence at the time since the beginning of it, was up in the air like what things would be like without him to begin with. And then from what I've heard, there was a lot more stuff thrown at Topdeck people and they just felt like it wasn't worth having an online presence at all. And their Discord is gone. Their Twitter pages are gone. Pretty much all of that. So people were really, really aggressive about that kind of stuff. Topdeck was just, and it's just like, we're not going to have a social presence anymore, basically, at least for now. And then we had announcements where you could hear from them that they're going to have much less of a role going forward. Events that they promised will still happen. Last I heard, Boil 2 is still happening, and next year's Invitational is happening. So they talked about how they are going to host the Envy and do Boil 2, but they're basically just going to be providing the Command Tower software and outsourcing the Diamond events, which were the new ways you qualify for this, to other people. Like the Royal Rumble in Boston will be a Diamond event in terms of points for the Invitational. And a lot of people, I mean, absolutely myself included, feel like the momentum of cEDH, which was kind of at its peak a week ago, was just sort of ripped out from underneath it. Knowing that a lot of the biggest, best events aren't going to be happening, like it doesn't sound like Punt City is going to be happening, sucks. It is a weird spot to be in right now where a lot of people don't really feel motivation to play in the next tournament series. And a lot of people don't know how they feel about cEDH in general right now. I know one of the big things for the RC movement or whatever, just changing the format, was that a lot of people, at least some of the most enfranchised, can't speak for everybody of course, but the most enfranchised people that I talked about don't really enjoy the way the game looks like. I feel like at the highest level it's pretty homogenized. That's always going to be opinion based, but and then on top of that, now it doesn't seem like there is a drive to continue what was like the goal, what I've heard described as the golden age of cEDH of this past year, of multiple big events constantly leading into the Invitational. That's this big unified movement that's happening, and now it's super up in the air and it's a mess and it's unfortunate, and it makes knowing what my position in cEDH will be going forward kind of odd. For instance, Topdeck does, a lot of their data is what feeds EDH Top 16 as far as I know, and that's what I use for the tournament reports. So like if that's not a thing, and getting access to tournament deck list is way less likely, then doing my tournament reports is probably going to be a little more up in the air. If we're getting less big events, less exciting things for me to cover. For a lot of people, what they think of as cEDH, like the norm for it, wasn't a reality, like even when I started this channel like 2 years ago or whenever, because that was before all of this kind of stuff we've gotten so accustomed to, all the stats and all the big events. Like there just weren't really even tournaments when we started. We just kind of talked about decks that looked good, and it was mainly like it's all about the database and the clout chasing and I don't know, all the garbage that goes with that. And this isn't me saying none of this pushback was, especially towards like stuff that people were pointing towards saying wasn't called for. This is more just about, hey, this is the position we're in cEDH right now. A lot of what we've come to expect isn't there now, or is way more up in the air. It's very unclear how things are going to go the next 6 months to a year. What do we do from here? And I don't know. I don't know if the wins are really just fully out of the sails and there's just going to be way less excitement, at least for tournament cEDH. I know this is really more about that aspect of the game, because most cEDH play is still just done at LGSs every week, or, on Spell Table or whatever in Discords. But the aspirational things about the format, like the Invitational and just the big event, the 300 player events, stuff like that, those being removed is pretty relevant. I feel like, I think those are the things that, there's a reason we saw lots and lots of players go into, I think it was like 4,000 people played in the circuit, something like that, because there was something to do, something to like aspire to, and like big events to look forward to with everybody. And if we see less of that going forward, it is like a pretty big detriment, I feel, to the community. This and like some of the extreme pushback I got that unrelated to anything that really had anything to do with me, has me in a kind of weird spot anyways. Like I haven't really ever opened up about anything like this on the channel, just my feelings as a person in the community, but they're weird right now, mainly more as a Magic community person, because the way the greater Magic community, who's not really as invested in or know anything about cEDH, reacted, I think was stronger and less surgical than the way a lot of cEDH people reacted. cEDH people reaching out to me and saying, hey, I really don't like what you guys are doing. Okay. That's something for me to work with. That stuff didn't really bother me. And especially like there were a lot of people who even didn't agree with me who reached out and were like, hey, I'm sorry you guys are dealing with this. And that's nice. DMs flooded with, how you doing? Are you okay? Which is kind of funny, but it was nice to see. And I am okay. I'm just don't know what I'm doing now. I don't know. I might be at a weird crossroads where I should either double down and push cEDH to be a community and a larger thing than it is, the way that I did 2 years ago, or I could just not do any of this anymore and move on and read the writing on the wall if it is there. Just a lot of uncertainty here, and I wanted to kind of air that out and to let you guys know what's up, because I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of people ask, what's my next thing I'm going to be doing, or just saying, hey, don't give up on this, blah, blah, blah. This is kind of my job at this point. I kind of have to keep doing something here on the internet. I'd like to keep doing YouTube stuff like this, but I didn't find myself with a lot of motivation to record recently. Even Eric's in kind of a weird spot with it. We went to record a podcast yesterday and kind of talked for a while about everything that's going on and the weird feeling in the air. I heard someone in the Breakfast Club describe it as the trying to celebrate a life right after a funeral. Which I don't know if it's that severe. Like I've said, it's all just that there is uncertainty. I don't know that it's doom and gloom and cEDH is over. People will still play it, of course. I've always been part of niche communities that they very much outlive their life expectancy. But I don't know where I am in it now. And hopefully you guys can give me a better idea of what you hope to see from me. It would be and feel odd to just turn this channel into something else, but I don't know. I'm kind of just talking here. I hope you guys feel good about the future of things. I hope everyone still enjoys cEDH, even if I feel weirder about it. I got to play a good bit the other day, even with all this nonsense going on, and that was nice, and I enjoyed it. I feel like in general, games are a little not my cup of tea, the way that the format plays, but even that's its own unrelated issue. Could be that I'm supposed to try to be more of a force for the community. I mean, I kind of did that, I guess, with the RC thing, but more about the community and not about myself, which is something when the RC thing happened, and now we're just going back and forth between topics, whatever. You guys should expect this video to be nonsense, okay? I was very hesitant about the RC stuff. When Mikey sent it to me, I was like, I don't know if this should exist. Because of that, I don't know that it should exist. I don't know that I should be on it. Because of that, I'm going to do it to try to keep things reasonable. And I'm probably failed at that, or wasn't as attentive to what was going on. There were things that were just miscommunicated that by the time I realized what other people's thoughts were, the whole, it's like, well, we're going to share this I'm going to share this with a private playtest group. Oh, I meant 400 people. Okay. Yeah, that was a miscommunication. We probably shouldn't have done that, right? Definitely not pointing fingers at how that was going to go, because there was always going to be issues with that, and didn't have any control over the Topdeck meltdown. Like, that was part of a conversation about the RC thing, but people are going to do what they want to do. I don't feel responsible, even though I kind of feel like I pressed the first domino of like, hey, what's the worst that, I want to add some good green cards. What's the worst that could happen? And then get to the giant domino of like, oh, death of the format. Hopefully other people don't feel that way. I don't know. I just always wanted to make things better. Maybe was some ego involved in that. And a lot of the RC thing too, I kept reaching out to people who were smarter than me, and I felt better than me at deciding those things, or maybe would disagree with me or other people I was with, and they encouraged me to pursue it. So I felt like, okay, these are people I listen to and whose opinion I value. I guess I'll do it. And I don't really regret trying. Could have done a better job, but I think ultimately, if this, like the Topdeck sort of meltdown of what we expect for cEDH, that's the thing that really matters. The cEDH RC was a mess. Anyways, maybe that could be a good coordinated effort going forward from people who were previously involved, but with a larger group or more of a community focus. One big thing about that was we were really, really in very deep talks to do pure community voting for decision making. It was just not something we were going to be able to implement very quickly. But maybe by the time decisions actually rolled around, because like I mentioned in the video, changes were only expected to happen in January. But anyways, I guess that's a lot of my feelings on what happened. I am hopeful for the cEDH community, because I think this is a community of amazing people that are super passionate about something very niche. And that is something that has appealed to me basically my entire life, is just people who love these weird little things, and them sharing that love and getting to create a community out of something that seems trivial. Being part of that and becoming something of a community leader in that aspect, going to the giant Topdeck events and having people approach me and say, you're the reason I play cEDH. I learned to play cEDH from you. This new niche little passion of my life is and was inspired by you. That's not something I can let go of very easily. I hope I don't. I hope I don't ever lose that or lose sight of that, even as my sort of excitement for the tournament side of the format maybe wanes and my ability to make content for it diminishes. I was already kind of having issues making content about showcasing interesting decks doing well because there's not as much of that. I did see a couple recently, and maybe I'll talk about those soon if I can kind of build up a little momentum. But I'm in a weird spot. The community's in a weird spot, and I hope things bounce back well. The future is a little uncertain right now, as it tends to be, but I think more so now than it has been in cEDH for a while. It's pretty unclear what the status quo is going to be going forward. So, to avoid me just going off on this forever and ever, probably cut this off here. Let me know down below what you're thinking about cEDH. Hopefully you have some, good opinions. You're excited for the format. I know I tend to reach out to a lot of newer and less tournament and franchise players. Like I have a big split in my community of there's tons of the biggest grinders in the world that watch my stuff and seem to enjoy it, and people who are getting into the format and play at home and play with their friends. So maybe we can get a big diversity of different opinions on what the format's looking like right now and what your thoughts on it moving forward are. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, go play cEDH. Have a good one, everybody.